Good morning, and welcome everybody to the Wish of a Lifetime, the second in a series of webinars that we'll do throughout the summer and fall, where we will introduce you to Make-A-Wish and the people whose lives have been positively affected by a wish come true. I'm Richard Kelly, the Chief Operating Officer of Make-A-Wish Southern Florida, and we have three great guests who I'm excited to get to. Their stories are unique, but they have something in common. Their wish experiences are memorable and have had a profound impact on their lives and who they are as adults. You know, a wish isn't just a nice thing that we do for children and their families. It's necessary for the physical and mental well-being of everybody who comes in contact with the wish. And you'll see today for the family structure as well. So let's get to our guests. As a teenager and even earlier, Devon Vickers had a thirst for politics. Her parents introduced her to social activism at a young age. That thirst was quenched when Devon's wish to meet the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton, was granted in 2003. Megan's star-studded wish to go to the premiere of the blockbuster movie Ocean's 12 took place in 2003. And David Thompson, who was a budding high school star, met Tom House, the world-renowned pitching coach, who was a coach to some of the greatest baseball stars of all time. We'll get a peek into the entire wish experience from who they actually were and actually their wish experiences. Remember to log on down here. There's a question box, and go ahead and ask your questions of the panelists when you get a chance to. Devon, we'll start with you. Devon, let's talk about your journey. Talk about your, as I mentioned, your parents were politically and socially active and introduced that to you at a youngish age. And you're a teenager, and Make-A-Wish approaches you about a wish. And so what was going on in your life at that time, and what was that like?
I was actually, I think, not even a teenager just yet. I was in middle school, and I had 2 years before been diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia, which is a super rare form of leukemia in kids. But fortunately, right after I was diagnosed, there was a new FDA-approved drug. So at that time, I didn't have to undergo, the traditional forms of chemotherapy and radiation. But I was still struggling with, in middle school, the normal, issues that middle schoolers deal with. And so at the time, I just wanted to be a normal kid. But what Make-A-Wish did for me was they approached me. I think my social worker at the hospital that I was at gave them my name, and they set up a meeting, and we had a meeting at our home. And Make-A-Wish wasn't necessarily an organization that I was aware of at the time. So it was just really cool to me that an organization wanted to grant a wish with pretty much anything I wanted to do. Like, I couldn't really at the time grasp that idea. Like, this organization, these people that I didn't know wanted to do something nice for me at no cost to me or my parents. So when they asked me what I wanted to do, I think my list at first was, very like trivial things. And it took them a minute to reinforce, like, no, you could like literally do pretty much anything. If you had, if money was no issue, if like, you could go anywhere, do anything, meet anyone, what would you want to do? And so again, at first that was still a little, like, I don't think I grasped that right away. So we played different games and activities. And I remember one of the first activities we did was, write down your top 5 people that you would want to meet. And I think on that list, and I want to give a warning that this was the early 2000s. So don't judge this list. But I think my number 1 was former President Bill Clinton. I think my number 2 was like Destiny's Child. And I think my number 3 was like Nelly. And so we talked about different reasons why I'd want to meet those people. And they gave me some time to think about it. And I ultimately decided to meet former President Bill Clinton.
And then you told us, or told me that there was an inspiration that you had in 4th grade for why the Clintons were an inspiration for you. Can you just tell us about that?
Sure. Like you said earlier, my parents have always been very civically involved, whether that was on a local politics, state politics. So I grew up from a very young age with my parents dragging me to city commission meetings, county commission meetings. And so I grew up with, the news or CNN or MSNBC being on our television every morning without me even realizing it. So I picked up on those things from a very young age. So in fourth grade, it was kind of, computer age with AOL, internet. And so we had kind of the world at our fingertips. So I remember in my computer class in fourth grade, the White House had just set up like an interactive feature where you can email the president, the first lady, or really any members on their staff. And so most people in that class chose the president naturally, but me being the young feminist that I was at the time, I chose to email First Lady Hillary Clinton. And so a couple weeks later, I got a handwritten letter mailed to my home, basically thanking me for reaching out to her and her answering some of my questions that I had. So that was my first real experience with like politics firsthand. And it kind of took away the layer that sometimes people associate with politics and politicians, that, they're so far away, they're not really personable. And so that was my first real interaction with a so-called politician that really showed me that these are just normal people. They care about the same things that we care about. She's a mother just like my mom. And she's probably having fights with her daughter over what she can wear to school too. So that was my first interaction, really like becoming engaged with politics and politicians and seeing them as more than politicians and more like people.
Okay, so great. So fast forward to 2003, and you've made your choice, and it's a pretty diverse list of wishes that you had. But you're going to meet Bill Clinton in his office in Harlem, New York, and so tell us what that meeting was like. What was that day? What did that day feature? I know that there's a larger story to be told of your trip to New York, but what was it like to meet a former president and meet him in such a relaxed atmosphere?
It was the whole experience was an awesome experience. It was my first time being in New York. And before we even got there, when they told us that, my wish had been granted and that I would be meeting Bill Clinton, like I said, at first I was skeptical, which is why I put him as number one, because honestly, I never thought that it would happen. And so I remember my parents being very anxious and nervous. And I guess maybe the reality hadn't set in for me yet. So I remember waiting in his conference room and just feeling like I was just going in to meet another person. So it wasn't until we actually went into his office that it kind of sank in. And I think I got kind of starstruck in the beginning, but he made me, not only myself, but my family, feel so comfortable. He talked to us like we were old friends. And what I thought would be a simply 10 or 15-minute meeting turned into a meeting for over an hour, where he literally like really wanted to know about me and my life and my family. I think we went over page by page, like painstakingly, my fifth grade yearbook. So those were just like little things that, to someone else don't really matter, but for a kid that had been through so much, little things like that, and connecting with, this former president of the United States, him like taking such an interest in me and making me feel, and my family feel, that we were the only people that mattered in that room that day, really meant a lot to me.
And you mentioned their family, and that's a common thread that we'll get to later in this webinar. But so talk about the chair. I know you sat in his chair, and that was an Oval Office chair. So what was that like?
Yeah, so he toured us around his office and all of his like memorabilia, and he has a lot. And so he offered me the opportunity to sit in his chair. And I believe this was the same chair that he actually had in the White House, And so I don't remember if he asked me or someone else in his staff asked, like, you know, how does it feel to be sitting in the former president's chair? And I said, I guess what any like pre-teenager would say at the time, I was like truthful, and I was like, it's comfortable. So I think he kind of got a kick out of that. But that whole experience just goes to show that it was just like a down-to-earth, personable experience. And in that moment, he didn't make me feel like I was a kid with a life-threatening disease or who'd overcome, you know, leukemia. He just made me feel like a part of his family.
Thank you. So Megan, so let's talk about your pre-wish journey. You know, you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and you told us in the past how, you know, that's traumatic for a teenager, especially for the treatment that you had to go through. You know, so leading up to when Make-A-Wish was introduced into your life and you decided on your wish, you know, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey?
Of course. I was diagnosed in 2003 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was obviously a very difficult time. I was 13 years old, just starting high school. Definitely the hardest for me was losing hair. I know it seems silly because I had an entire year of treatment, but being a 13 years old, starting school, starting high school, and losing hair was definitely the hardest moment. It was something I really had to struggle with. And then I went through the year of treatment, and the child life specialist at the hospital actually approached us about Make-A-Wish. And at first, my parents and I turned Make-A-Wish down completely. We thought, you know, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to survive, and Make-A-Wish is for kids who are passing. So we absolutely said no. And she kept coming back to us and said, no, you know, Make-A-Wish is for kids like you as well. Even if you can do it too. And so that kind of started our journey, and we met with Make-A-Wish and started the process of deciding what kind of wish I wanted. I always had an interest in working behind the scenes of movies and seeing how movies and TV shows are put together. And so at first I kind of wanted to go on set somewhere. And we were looking at different movies. We saw Ocean's 12 was coming out and the list of actors and actresses on that. So I knew if possible, I'd like to do something with that. But they were done filming. So the Make-A-Wish coordinator mentioned maybe we can do something with a premiere or something like that. I wasn't sure if it was possible, but she looked into it, and it was an amazing experience. And I went to the premiere and the after party, which was a lot of fun. A lot of fun walking the red carpet and going through that whole experience. It was an incredible opportunity, and something I still 16 years later, still talk about today. It was very cool meeting all of these celebrities and getting to see them face to face and talk to them. It was an incredible experience. It definitely was fun. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. So you told me many years ago that if I'm going to get a wish, I want to wish big. And you
Yes.
wished big. And so were you in awe? Were you overwhelmed? I mean, you just scrolling through some of those pictures, you know, what was that? What was that like to be in your body at that time?
Oh my goodness, you can't even describe it. It was absolutely incredible getting to meet people that you see on TV and in movies and being able to be face to face and talk with them. But honestly, the biggest part of the wish, it's all the little things that lead up to it. The Make-A-Wish, you guys took me shopping to get my outfit, and that was incredible. All those little details. My parents were able to come with me. You actually flew out even my siblings who were too young to attend the movie, but everyone was there with me. And that's the part that was so incredible, was that we were all able to experience it together. And, you know, meeting all of these celebrities and just all the little details. I was telling Richard earlier, one of the parts that I remember the most about that experience were the Make-A-Wish people. And I had gone, of course, you guys picked us up in limos and did all that, which is incredible. And when we got down from the airport, after flying into California, the Make-A-Wish person who picked us up, when we were looking around trying to find him, he was standing there with a bouquet of flowers and balloons in front of the limo, of course, but so excited. And his smile and his energy, it was just, that's a moment I'll never forget. And I remember as soon as I saw him thinking, this is going to be incredible. This experience is going to be one of a kind. His energy was absolutely amazing. I can tell you what he was wearing. I remember that moment so perfectly. And it's just a small little moment, but those are what make it so incredible. It's not only the wish, which obviously is, you know, show-stopping, but it's the little details that really make it stand out in your mind and make it something that I remember 15 years later.
What's amazing and proves the impact of a wish is those tiny details that you remember 15, 16 years ago. But which one of the three was your favorite? You had the red carpet, you had the actual movie premiere, and then you had the after party, which we saw the pictures from. Can you pick one out of the three?
Oh my goodness, that's hard. Probably the after party, just because that's where you could interact with the stars. But really the whole thing. I remember you're sitting watching the movie, like a typical Hollywood Regal movie theater that you're at your home watching. And then, someone laughs and you look over and it's Matt Damon. And it's like, wow, I'm here. This is real. So that part of it is cool, but definitely the after party, which is where all these pictures are from. That's where you can meet everyone. And that's where I had the opportunity to speak with them and get to know them. They're all very friendly, but definitely the after party.
So you were the star of stars in a star-studded room. So that's really cool.
It was a lot of fun.
That's great. And David, so tell us about your pre-wish journey. I know you were playing baseball. You were a sophomore, junior in high school. Your illness caused a bunch of injuries. And then after it was diagnosed, you went from, I won't steal all your thunder, but you went from playing third base, hitting, to pitching, and then pick it up from there on when Make-A-Wish came into your life and you got to decide what your wish was going to be.
Yeah, so what I really remember, and this is, I was kind of a punk kid sitting in the doctor's office, and I had my headphones in, and, my mom was always great, taking care of everything she could and, listening and all that. And I would always just take my earbuds out to listen at the end to see if they were going to clear me to play. And I remember I'd take them out, she'd probably tap me. And I just remember them telling me kind of that I'd been diagnosed, and that actually this was something that would qualify me for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I remember almost immediately you guys reached out to me and we were working on that. And I think something to echo something that these two wonderful panelists have mentioned is it's such a lofty thing to have a wish to do almost whatever you want. So we really, we struggled to work through what we wanted, and me and my dad especially worked hard, and we wanted to get something baseball related that was going to have a lasting effect for us. And so we settled on Tom House, who is a pitching coach was Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, I'm pretty sure Roger Clemens as well, but also just a major league pitching coach and a legend in his own right. And he played Major League Baseball as well. So we really figured out that he would be somebody who could help us out and could really, I'd been hurt for 3-4 years, and I'm watching these people just pass me that I'd played with my whole life. And we wanted anything we could to accelerate that. And the Make-A-Wish Foundation was able to deliver, as was Tom House. So that's really where we decided on him for.
So we fly you out to California because Tom House is a pitching coach, or he's a consultant at USC. So you went to California, and you told me a story, not just like Megan's, that, when you get to the airport, there's a Make-A-Wish person greeting you there, Herb, and, and he was kind of your tour guide for everything Thompson related in Southern California. You talk about that, and then also what it was like to have, we're going to see all these pictures and video, what it was like to be hooked up to all these little buzzers and machines and everything and throwing in front of Tom House.
So to start with Herb, again, that's definitely something that what Megan said is exactly right. As great as the wish is, it's the weird little things that seem to always stick in my mind. And I still tell my friends stories from things that Herb has told me. So Herb had somehow a familiar relation through, I think his sister was actually, his wife was related to Nomar Garcia-Parra, so who was the famous shortstop for the Boston Red Sox forever. So he had gotten to know him well, and someone like CC Sabathia had come around. So he just had these really, really cool stories about actual Major League Baseball players that for, a 15, 16-year-old baseball nerd, I still tell some of these stories about how CC Sabathia can do a 360 dunk, which is like super cool. I'll never forget that in my life. Anybody who has watched CC Sabathia, that's the coolest thing. So he did that. He also got us Dodger tickets, which was awesome. He took me to In-N-Out Burger, which the one in LA is still the best cheeseburger I've ever had in my life. So it was something like that, which was amazing. He really was great. And so was, all the other little details and all the people along the way. But as for being connected to the sensors, that was, I'm going to call it for so many other reasons, but definitely for this reason, the weirdest pitching lesson I've ever had in my life. So, I'm out there warming up and I'm getting ready, and then they basically are like, all right, take your clothes off. So it was definitely very different. But it was very cool to put those on. And then as you can see right here with us on this computer, almost immediately there is a skeletal breakdown on the computer, breaking you down to just the thousandth of a millisecond to tell you every little thing about your movement. And, Tom House is just such a genius. He's sitting there telling you how if you tweak this, you can do this and all these amazing things. And he was just doing it right there for me. And it was a really cool thing it really opened my eyes that this could be a path to getting better. And he was also very kind to me further on. I think afterwards he had mentioned that based on what he saw, and if we could continue working together, which we did actually for a few more weeks afterwards, that I could have college or professional potential. And stuff like that really means a lot and sticks out.
Did you add some miles to the fastball?
I did, actually. So I ended up playing college baseball, and eventually I think I threw 92 miles an hour, maybe 93. And I always say I was not necessarily a very good baseball player, but that's my I did it moment. I threw 92 miles an hour, and I had thrown 90 in front of scouts, and that's something that I'll always keep with me. And that does not happen without him.
And we see in some of those photos that your family was there too. Your dad was right in the middle of that scrum, looking at your, baseball is different because there's a lot of baseball moms and baseball dads, and to have them involved with your wish must have been a cool thing too.
Oh, it was amazing. So with him, first of all, I just got married last week. So I know you guys, we've talked about this a little bit, but my dad was my best man, and we are extremely close. And when I had fractured my spine 3 times during all of this, and he was actually, we showed up early to practice, to hit some batting practice. And that's where I hurt my back for the first time, was with my dad, just me and him. So I know that him being there for my wish was very, very important to him as well as to me.
Thank you for that. Just as a reminder to our guests, if you have any questions for any of the panelists, please send them in the Q&A box below. So Devon, so talk about after your wish. I know you had a meeting with President Clinton many years after that. But tell us how the wish has kind of formed you as an adult and formed your I guess your advocacy for politics or your interest in politics.
I think that, like I said before, that first meeting just kind of cemented, my dreams or my goals of working somehow in politics and going to law school. And so that meeting, even after, I was re-diagnosed and unfortunately had to have a bone marrow transplant, the wish itself just served as a constant reminder and as inspiration that I could keep on going, and that this was kind of the inspiration I needed to remind me of what my goals were, which were to ultimately always go to law school and work somehow in politics. And so now I'm a lawyer at Greenberg Traurig doing land use and zoning. So it's not necessarily what I pictured for myself, when I was in 6th and 7th grade and met, former President Bill Clinton. But it's always funny, I say, how things just work out. And for me, it's a full circle moment because what I do is essentially still involved in local politics because, in working with and representing our clients and developers and property owners, these developments, whether they're, 25-story high rises or single development family homes or townhomes, usually have to get approved by the city commission or county commission. So in doing that, you have to kind of know the lay of the land and know, the city commissioners and how they stand on development or environmental policies that may affect that property. So in doing what I do now at Greenberg as a land use and zoning attorney, I still am very involved and still have to kind of, be aware of not just what's going on locally, but statewide and federally. And then the second prong of that full circle moment is in working at GT, I'm actually working with Make-A-Wish, the Southern Florida chapter, as a pro bono client and helping them with a new development that they are hoping to achieve in the city of Miami with their new Make-A-Wish house. And so for me, in working with the very same nonprofit organization that gave so much to me and, you know, granted my wish in meeting President Bill Clinton was just a full circle moment completely. And it just confirmed that, you know, it's just a way for me to give back to the same organization that gave so much to me at no cost again to me or my family. And so things like that and looking back, because when you're, you know, 16 years old or 12 years old or 11 years old, you're super thankful and happy about your wish being granted. But I don't think the magnitude of what this organization is doing for you really sets in. I think it does for your family, you know, for our parents, which is why usually they're very emotional. But as a kid, you're just super happy to get your wish granted. And to go out of town or fly on an airplane or meet, you know, the celebrity or this president or, you know, your baseball star. But I don't think now being an adult, you know, who has been cancer free for 10 plus years, looking back at those moments and meeting the president of the United States and seeing how that inspired my path and the trajectory that I've taken now as, you know, a fully realized married woman lawyer, and getting that opportunity to represent the same organization that gave so much to my life is just, there are no words. It's something out of a movie. And so I know we've said it before, but we just want to thank you all. And we don't always get those opportunities to thank all the staff, you know, behind the scenes and booking the flights and, you know, drafting the itinerary. And so representing Make-A-Wish now as a pro bono client is my way of just saying a huge thank you to all those people that did so much for me and my family, even though I've never met them and will never meet some of them. But I think that's how it's impacted, and more just not even my career, but just me as a fully realized adult, just being thankful for my position here on earth and knowing that I can give back in some type of way.
And we thank you for all the work that you've done on our campaign to build our Wish House, which will end up being the headquarters for our Southern Florida chapter, and hopefully that comes to fruition very soon. Megan, so can we talk about the family aspect of your wish? You know, both you and your mom have both said that having your family there was one of the best aspects of that, which is kind of weird because you have all these celebrities and all of that stuff, but having your family there, what added so much to that wish. And we believe in Make-A-Wish that, you know, to involve the family, because the family is involved in the child's illness, the treatment, and everything that's surrounding that, siblings, parents as well. So I know that was a big aspect of your wish. So can you just talk about that a little bit?
Of course, of course. Growing up, family was always very important to us. We always had meals together. We were always together. And when I was diagnosed, a lot of that had to go away. I had treatment 2 hours away from where I live. So, and I have younger siblings. So my dad would have to stay back so they could go to school and do their activities and kind of have a normal life for them, so they weren't as affected. And my mom and I would travel a lot back and forth to get my treatments. So we were always separated. And it was hard because we weren't used to that. We never had meals together as a family. We were always separated. And thanks to Make-A-Wish, that was one of the biggest blessings that you guys gave us. We were together again. Even just for that weekend, we were together. We had meals together. We created memories together. We laughed together. We were together again as a family, even if it was just for that weekend, but we were together again. And that was one of the biggest things, especially now that I'm older and I have a family of my own. I realize even more how important that is. And thanks to Make-A-Wish, we were able to be together. We still talk about memories from that today. And it was such an incredible experience. And we laugh and we joke, and we have the pictures as a little coffee book on our coffee table, and we look at it all the time. And it's such a great moment, and it was a great moment together. And that's, I think, one of the most beautiful things that you guys do. So thank you for that.
Impactful is the word that we can think of. So
Definitely.
you know, to involve your family and involve and bring sort of that family structure together, even if it's a short period of time, is really impactful. So David, you told me that you know, your wish gave you this renewed sense of optimism for what you could experience in the future. Can you just talk about that and sort of how that translates to the current times?
Yeah, I think it was when me and you spoke recently. It was you asked me what the thing that most I think impacted me, and it's an extremely timely question. I think is that I'm optimistic. I have a lot of friends that have maybe lost their jobs recently or had anything like that, and they they feel that maybe think the world isn't a kind place. And I just remember when I was going through all this, when you're, I think Ms. Vickers mentioned it, when you're that age. Things are so important to you, just being with your friends, being on the baseball field, anything but being in a doctor's office pretty much is where your whole focus is. And you, after 3 or 4 years of, spinal fractures and hand fractures and elbow fractures and not knowing what was wrong with me, but it happening day after day, you start to feel that you have a lost sense of control, and that, the world isn't nice to you and that the world isn't a great place. But then when all of a sudden somebody comes in and puts this lofty thing on your lap and just says, we will give you anything that you want, anything that will make you happy and anything that will make you better in the thing that you love and what you want to do, you start to get a feeling of, and then along the way, once you're there, everybody's great, right? Everybody's so nice. I have Herb and Tom House and all the people that have helped me out. And now I've actually learned recently, I learned afterwards that there was actually one man named Bob Press that funded my wish, and that, we're so thankful for that. So you learn that the world is actually a very nice place. You learn that, even though things may be difficult right now, you can get through it, and somebody is out there that cares about you and loves you. And that's such a very important thing, I think, especially with how things have been over the last 3 or 4 months, and not just America, but the world. So that's something that I've told people that for years, and I thought it's such a timely thing to do this webinar and get a chance to talk about that.
We have, thank you for that. We have a comment from one of our attendees that says, each of your stories is so exciting and wonderful. You're also well-spoken and makes me happy as a wish granter to hear how important Make-A-Wish was for you. Devon, can you just, this is your opportunity to thank some of the people that are in the audience today and will watch this later. The people that don't know the Wish Kids, that don't know your stories, but pour their hearts, their time, their treasure into our organization and making wishes come true. And you have an opportunity to thank them and tell them what it means to you. Can you just do that for us?
Sure. I mean, again, there really aren't any words to just thank everyone enough. And I think that, we thank the celebrities that we meet, and we thank, their staff. And sometimes, like I said before, like, the volunteers and the wish granters and the staff, like, kind of go thankless. And so if anything, just know that what you're doing, even though you may never even meet the Wish Kid, like, means so much to us. Whether we grow up to be adults, like, me, David, and Megan, or like some kids, unfortunately, who succumb to their diseases. But just know that in either of those situations, the impact you had on that kid. And even now as an adult, like, it's just resonates that much more, because I don't have kids of my own, but I have nieces and nephews, and just being able to watch them grow up and knowing if that something similar happened to them, and knowing that a complete stranger or, an organization like Make-A-Wish had granted a wish in their life, as, their aunt or mom and dad, I would be so thankful for those people. And so from all of those kids, that you may never hear a thank you from, like, we truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. And not just those kids, but those families, because it's something that my parents still, like, to this day brag about. Like Megan said, like, we have a picture on our coffee table in our living room of, like, us and the president. And so it's just things like that just means so much to us. And unfortunately, that picture doesn't say Make-A-Wish, but we make sure that anytime we have someone at the house, like, we make sure they know, like, this was because of Make-A-Wish and all of the, like, excellent staff and volunteers that go along with that. So in case you don't hear it, or those nights where you're tired of calling people to try to raise funds or, get new wish granters, like, it all makes such a difference.
Incredibly wonderful. Thank you. Megan, same question to you. What would you say to the people that made your wish come true, whether they're donating their time, their treasure, their talent, whichever the aspect is?
I think Devon said it perfectly. I can't say it any better than that. Thank you isn't enough. There aren't enough words to thank them for what they've done. Through that whole time, it gives you hope. While I was going through treatment, I knew my wish was coming. It gives you that hope to keep going, to keep pushing forward. And then afterwards, it's a sense of joy. And thanks to you guys is why we have that joy and why we have that hope and why these memories continue to stay with us for years to come. And we can talk about it like if we went yesterday. You know, it's an amazing thing. And thank you for everything you guys did to make all of those possible. It's an incredible experience. One of a kind for sure.
Awesome, thank you. David, same last question on that.
Yeah, I of course they've done a great job. I think the only thing I have to add is, thank you, but I don't think people always realize how much the work permeates through our lives. And what I mean by that is, like I said, it's the optimism. It changes your personality, but it's a common thread. We're talking, we spoke a little bit earlier in the week with my co-panelists, and, you're like, wait, you're a lawyer. And we're all these, I feel like we're almost friends. Yeah, sorry. But, like the first thing I said was, how cool was Megan's wish? So, you get to meet people and have a great time. An interesting story is my wife, one of the first conversations I ever had with her was she was raising money for Make-A-Wish. And that was like a weird conversation starter. One of my best friends and groomsmen, his little sister was actually a Make-A-Wish kid as well. And she, they were falling on really hard times. And her wish was just to go on a cruise with her family. And that meant so much to them. And it's such a weird thing that he later on actually went to work for Carnival Cruise Line for a while. And I know these are like weird little things, but I'm everything happens for a reason type of person. And I guess that's the only thing I'd want to echo is that it is such a continuing thread throughout your life that I think all of us that have had these wishes and have been a part of it, whether they are the person being granted or the family, feel it for many, many years to come. So that's the only thing I think I would add to what Ms. Vickers and Megan have said.
Thank you. We had a question that came in, so we'll start with you, Devon. Did your wish take over the fear you may have had during treatment? And how did your disease affect you in school?
So my wish came after I had been in remission for about a year. And so all I really was doing as far as treatment at the time was taking chemotherapy in the form of pills. So I had to take 4 pills in the morning, 4 pills in the evening. But I guess how it affected me in school and at the time that my wish was granted was that I was still struggling with just normal pre-teenage and teenager issues, which a lot of like self-esteem and like, how you look is very important. And so all I really wanted was to be a normal kid. I couldn't really do sports like I wanted to. And so even though my wish was granted because of my disease, like I said, in meeting President Clinton, he didn't make me feel like a kid that had cancer. He didn't talk to me like a kid that had cancer. He talked to me like, I could be his kid or his grandkid. And so that made me feel like a normal kid. And that's all I think any kid with any life-threatening disease really wants. Other than toys and have friends and play video games, like they don't like the feeling of being dragged to the hospital or having to explain maybe like why you have to go to the hospital to their other friends. And so for me, that experience did more than just like made me forget about, going to the doctor every week, but it just made me feel like a normal kid. And I think that was something that I think my parents saw as well, because that was just a constant struggle for me in middle school. And so that experience just kind of confirmed that I am a normal kid, no matter whether I have this disease or not. But even with this disease, I can do anything, if not more, than quote unquote the normal kid without cancer. And so I think that's something that experience definitely cemented in my mind, which inspired me when I was re-diagnosed with cancer 5 years later, and just reminded me that, whether I have cancer or not, I can do whatever I put my mind to. And so that was just a tenet that Make-A-Wish kind of just reinforced. And I held that tenet when I was re-diagnosed, when I was cancer-free, and even now as an adult. And I think that's something that David said was, not only does it really permeate and affect you, but I think what Make-A-Wish does, whether it's the staff or the actual wish itself, it's like a ripple effect. And so the wish is like that drop in the water, but the ripple effect is how it affects not only the kid, but even the celebrity you're meeting, or the wish granter and that family or that kid's family. And so I definitely think it's been a ripple effect in my life, and it's definitely, whether I realized it or not, kind of guided me or inspired me to keep on going in times where I didn't think I could. And it's definitely acted as a ripple effect, you know, to my family, to my sisters, to my brother, to my parents, who were just grateful that I had this opportunity and had this opportunity to do something where I didn't have to worry about taking my pills or, you know, going to the doctor. And so I think, like I said, that's all like kids with any life-threatening disease really want. And I think that's something that Make-A-Wish does.
Megan, same question to you.
Oh my goodness. Can you repeat the question again? You did so good. I was just listening.
How did your wish take over the fear you had during your treatment? And how did it affect you in school?
Well, it definitely helps you through that whole fear. For me, it gave me so much hope. I was still going through treatment when we were figuring out what wish to do, and we decided on the premiere and all that. So it was a sense of hope during those really, really hard times. And I was able to go after I finished my treatment, thankfully, but I was still going to school. And like I had mentioned, the hardest part for me was losing my hair. I was starting high school, and my biggest fear, I don't remember when my parents told me that I had cancer, but I do remember when they told me that I was losing my hair. And I remember the thought and the fear of starting high school and, you know, this new adventure, the big high school you're going to, and now I'm going to have to go without hair. And thankfully, my parents and my doctor pushed me to actually go to school because I was able to be there with my friends, and that was a big part of helping me recover. But Make-A-Wish helps you through every step of that way, of giving you that hope of getting through each treatment and getting through even your exams, knowing that, you know, you're one step closer to meeting Brad Pitt or, you know, meeting Bill Clinton or whatever it is. But it's a big part of helping you get through these hard moments and staying strong through them.
Thank you. That's beautiful, David. How did your wish affect you, and sort of this fear that you have because you're getting all these injuries, and you know you're still a high schooler. You know, how are you affected by that?
I think my fear might be a little different, because my fear was that the thing I love the most is being taken away from me. So I just remember, you know, after like an injury, like the first injury, you know, nobody really knows what's going on. You're just going to heal. You're going to be fine. But then it happens again and again. And I still remember one of the fourth or fifth times I just lost. I was so I've never been that upset in my life, I don't think, because I thought, you know, this is probably the last time I'm ever, you know, 3 years ago was the last time I'm ever going to pick up a baseball or pick up a bat. So having that, and then something I alluded to earlier was then going on my wish, and Tom House made a comment to one of the reporters that I actually could be a college baseball prospect and could eventually have pro potential. And you hear that, and you know, that fear is like, it doesn't matter. I don't care that I'm afraid that this baseball is gonna be taken away from me, because, you know, at this point, only I can take it away from me, I guess, is, you know, it gives you that control back that I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep working on this, and I'm gonna get better every day. And if there's another setback, who cares? We'll figure it out again. So I think for me, it was that a renewed sense of determination, a renewed sense of control over my future that was really the way it affected that fear aspect for me. And then, of course, for school, it was just that I missed, I really couldn't play baseball, and, you know, you can be estranged from your buddies, but then I was able to come back and play, and really had that awesome camaraderie that comes from being able to come back and play a sport.
We've had two questions that are very similar that came in that said, if you could have a wish now as an adult, what would it be? Devon, we'll start with you.
Wow, you really put me on the spot. That's a tough one. I mean, it definitely would be an experience or meeting someone, I think for me, like those are the best experiences because like those will last a lifetime. That memory, you know, that experience. And I mentioned this in a previous conversation we had with the panelists. I think David's wish was super cool because unlike me and Megan's, like he was a little bit older. And so his wish in meeting like this baseball legend, not just meeting him, but helping him with his pitch, like that showed like such forward thinking. Like I want to meet this man to help me with this so I can like further my baseball career. And so I guess if I was an adult, it'd be something similar. Just off top of my head, and this probably seems kind of corny because it's in the same realm of politics, but I would probably wish to meet Michelle Obama. As you know, an adult now, and after reading her book and like you know going on her book tour, so many things that she's gone through as a young African American female in a top 100 law firm. So many of those things that she spoke about resonated with me. And so having the opportunity to sit down and talk with her about those things as someone who's experienced it and is, you know, older and has gone through so many more things, I think that would probably be my wish now, off the top of my head, but definitely meeting someone.
Good answer for being on the spot. Megan?
That's hard. It's really hard to choose. I think I would do the same idea, but now that I have kids of my own, I'd probably do something that the kids would enjoy too. So it probably, I always love movies and behind the scenes of movies, so I would probably still maybe go to a premiere or on set somewhere, but somewhere that my daughter and my soon-to-be child would enjoy as well. Maybe some Disney movie or something that I would enjoy, but the whole family would too. But it's hard to pick.
It is hard because you're a fully formed adult and you could probably do most anything. David, same question for you.
Man, I will say meeting President Clinton and going to the Ocean's 12 thing is pretty good. That's a really, really tough one. And I think something that they keep saying is at this stage, I think I would almost do something for someone else, I think, which is very, very different than I probably was selfishly at 15. My wife is a huge, she's from Texas and grew up on a ranch with horses and all that kind of stuff. And we had a chance to go to the Kentucky Derby, and it was like the only year that it had rained in like 50 years. And she loved it, and it was a blast, but we still loved it. So I almost think maybe to take her back out there in a non-rainy year. But I got another one that's kind of interesting. After meeting these two wonderful women here, it's been really cool you're really the first other Make-A-Wish kids that I've gotten a chance to meet. And I've had a blast just kind of like it's such a cool thing to hear somebody say, oh, I went to the Ocean's 12 thing and President Clinton was like this. And like, I don't know, it's really cool. So I would almost want to meet like a lot of them. Like, I don't know how we could make that happen or something, but having the opportunity to kind of just listen to everybody tell their stories. How about this, a big Make-A-Wish kid party? That's my wish. How's that one?
That's cool. That's a cool one.
That'd be a cool wish.
Yeah.
All right. Our staff is having convulsions on together, but we'll
Sorry about that, guys. Didn't mean to on you.
We're running up against time, and we did promise that we were going to keep this under 45 minutes. We've extended that a little bit, but I wanted to say on behalf of our organization, on behalf of all the people that are attending this webinar, I want to thank each of you, Devon, Megan, and David, for sharing your stories, for sharing the impact that the Wish has had on your lives, and thank you for being ambassadors for us. You know, as we continue to grant wishes, and hopefully we'll be able to grant even more of them in the future. We realize the impact that it has on Wish kids, their families, their extended families, and everybody surrounding that wish. And you guys are symbols of that, of what we believe our impact is and why we do this. You know, why everybody, staff, volunteers, and donors, and everybody surrounding our organization, why we do what we do. We do what we do because of you three and the tens of thousands of Wish kids that have had wishes across the country and across the world. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and look forward to hearing more from your stories and stories of other Wish kids and their families. And I want to remind the attendees of our next webinar, which is August 19th, Wednesday, August 19th. It's the impact of a wish, a mom's perspective. So we'll have 3 Wish moms that will be here to talk about their children's wishes, their perspective on the wishes in some cases decades later. It will be hopefully an uplifting and emotional ride through their wish experiences from their perspective and from the children's perspective as well. You can log on to our website at sfla.wish.org to sign up. Just go to the events tab, and that sign up will be there. And I would encourage you to learn more about our organization by visiting us on social media at Make-A-Wish SFLA. That's on our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, our Instagram handle, and also on YouTube. This video, this recording will be there within the next 48 hours or so. A recording of this webinar will be there. And again, thank you to Devon, to Megan, and to David for being with us today. Have a great day.